We are talking today with Rabbi Leib Tropper. The title of today's talk is Misfortunes of Wealth. We all recall the line in Fiddler on the Roof. The most important men in town would come to fawn on me. They would ask me to advise them like Solomon the Wise. If you please, Reb Tuvia, pardon me, Reb Tuvia, posing problems that would cross a rabbi's eyes. And it won't make one bit of difference if I answer right or wrong. When you're rich, they think you really know. What honor seems to be ascribed to wealth and richness, and certainly Tuvia and many of the Jews of that era who suffered from poverty longed to have wealth or at least be rid of their poverty. What is the authentic Torah perspective on money, on wealth, and how do we reconcile that with the suffering of somebody like Tuvia the milkman, who was a fictional character but represented so much of what went on in Jewish life then and throughout the centuries in Jewish life, although today we've arrived at a point of much affluence, but nonetheless there are people who don't have money, but many people, most, aspire to wealth and riches. So how are we to perceive the authentic Torah attitude toward money, toward wealth? As you put it, Rabbi Leib, there are actually misfortunes of wealth, the misfortune of fortune. How would we understand that?
Well, Peretz, first of all, I want to thank you very much for having me here today, and I consider it always an honor to share a time with you on the issues that are of value and importance. Since in today's day, the word success and good became synonymous. Success, particularly in the area of money, and not only success, but it's wealth that became substituted the word success. It's not anymore just success in making a living or having a parnasa, earning what you need to support your family, but it's wealth. Wealth represents something which we'll talk about in a moment.
As the yardstick of success, actually.
Correct, exactly. Unfortunately, that's became the substitute for success is the yardstick of success or the substitute for success. It's just, but as you said, in this poetic prayer of if I were a rich man, as he said to God, why not give me a little bit? As that's what he's begging for. Give me a little bit, something, a little bit of wealth. He starts off his prayer here in a poetic form, and
he said it's no shame to be poor, but it's no great honor either.
But then he continues. He says,
"Yes, so that what would have been so terrible if I had a small fortune?"
Right. In other words, he's requesting, he's begging, almost pleading that God? Why shouldn't I get a small fortune? This is very important. I think we should concentrate on this for a minute. There is a distinction between the pursuit of success and being blessed with success. They are not synonymous, and they don't come necessarily one as a result of the other. God gives. HaKadosh Baruch Hu moirish uma'ashir. HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes away, make people unfortunately destitute, and he makes them very wealthy. Of course, there's a shtadlis involved, but sometimes the shtadlis turns into a pursuit, a life's pursuit, that becomes totally, takes over. It has life of its own already, becomes, like, family becomes pushed aside, Torah becomes compromised, Shabbos becomes compromised, things become compromised because of wealth.
The quest
of wealth becomes like really such a pursuit that it's all consuming, and that's something that I want to talk about now. There is a mitzvah in the Torah, like the Gross says that. It's a mitzvah d'oraisa, actually. He says in Mishnayos Peah to support your family and to make parnasa for your family. That is an absolute mitzvah in our Torah to do that, not midrabanan. Not only a chiyuv of the ksub, it's not only a lien on person's acquisitions to support his family, but there's a mitzvah in the Torah for a man to support his family. Beyond that, the Gemara says in Chagiga, Yoah ani yusol liyisrael. The Gemara talks about as poverty is good for the Jewish people. It's like an ornament for the Jewish people, like a red
necklace.
Bow around the neck of a white horse.
Mm-hmm. Very stark contrast.
Why is it so? What is the blessing of that, in a sense? What's the beauty of it? Because the beauty of it is because the neshama cries out for its connection to God. The soul cries out for its connection to God. It's begging you, as you're pursuing your interest in monetary and materialistic things and corporeal things that you have, the neshama is crying and begging, please, I want to be dependent on Hashem. So poverty, or at least not being wealthy, makes you dependent on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Give me today just my parnasa. I shouldn't be, I guess, acquitted from my job. I shouldn't be told to leave. I shouldn't, have to, I should have my parnasa today.
I should make it through.
I should have a parnasa, and definitely poverty makes a person dependent upon the Rabbi Shalom, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yah ani Yusel Yisrael. And even if it's sometimes cranky pleadings with God, there's value. There's a connection with Hashem in this cranky pleadings to God, versus one who becomes, most of the time, the wealth that creates a certain kind of arrogance. The Pasuk says in Chumash, "Vayishman Yeshurun Vayivat." When they become satiated totally, and they now are living on excess, and they all of a sudden rebel. They just kind of rebel against the Bari Olam, and they rebel, and everything's rebelled in a very polite way. The whys become change. The questions, the why. Why is it that I have to go on Shabbos? You cannot work. Why can't you do this on Shabbos? Why can't you go to the beach? Isn't that Onik Shabbos? Isn't that, all of those things that comfort comes with the comfort that money brings, ends up a very much of a discomfort for the neshama of a yid. They start off with questions. Why? Why can't I? What's wrong with it? The pursuit of wealth is very much tied into the pursuit of comfort. We are suffering from an illness which is called the discomfort with discomfort. God forbid, we're so fragile. A little discomfort in our life, it's impossible. I don't know how people lived, 50, 60 years ago without air conditioners, 80 years ago without air conditioners. I don't know how they survived on a Shabbos afternoon or Shoshana Yom Kippur. I don't imagine how they could live through a whole day without it. But they did. And they daven, and they remember, and they're very happy about that, and they remember that they reminisce about those experiences of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and the heat of a shul became part of the experience of Yom Kippur. This is what we adopted is as a wonderful thing to be wealthy. The Gemara does say, it's true, the Gemara does say it's a wonderful thing, and it's honorable. Rabbi Mechabed Ashirim. But Rabbi was Mechabed wealthy people, not the pursuit of wealth. Rebbe was never machabed that pursuit. That's not what Rebbe was talking about. Wealthy people who inherit money, or wealthy people who earned money by they did ishtadlus and all of a sudden they became wealthy. That is wonderful.
What's the reason that he was machabed then?
Well, they do wonderful things with their money. They do wonderful things with their money, and they help the people with money, and they also obviously have a certain status in Klal Yisrael to be able to create what needs to be created. And Rabbi Mechabed Ashirim. But not the pursuit of wealth. The pursuit of wealth is detestable in a certain sense, in the way that it's done, that is totally embracing a human being, and he becomes obsessed about becoming a wealthy man. Why do people become obsessed with the pursuit of wealth?
Well, it could be the Tuvia syndrome, that they don't have, and because they're lacking so much, that therefore they feel that money would answer everything. Well,
King Solomon in Shlomo Melech says in Mishlei, he says, Rabbi Shalom, I ask you two questions. Please don't turn them away from me. And one is, Ha'achileni lechem chuki, give me my day's worth keep of food. Don't make me wealthy so I shouldn't rebel in God. Don't make me poor so I shouldn't have to, God forbid, do inappropriate things to get money. Just give me what I need. But Tevye is talking about asking for wealth. That pursuit of wealth is definitely not welcome within the Torah communities, a Torah environment, period. But I want to just move on to, because the Psukim says Osher Ya'ane Azus. Osher talks arrogantly. That wealthy people just have this arrogance. They think wealth, equals power. Wealth equals power, equals fame, equals so many things, equals opportunity in their mind.
But in the world's mind as well, seems to be a reality.
We're not talking about the world's mind, we're talking about the soul of the world, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God, and the Torah. That's the world's mind is the world's mind. World's mind. Terrorism is considered to be in some kind of moral system, decrepit moral system, we'll call terrorism freedom fighters, right? And so it's we can't judge that kind of morality or pursuit as something that's good, because people who don't have value system or value-free system, they have a value-free system in their life and they don't have really a value system, are telling us that, wow, money is really important. But Reb Chaim Volozhin actually writes something in Pirkei Avos, I think it's the second or third parak. He writes, well, he asks the question and he answers, what is a bigger challenge to an individual, wealth or poverty? Meaning, when a person is wealthy, he has money, but then he can do terrible things with his money, or waste the money. The blessing, that it's a blessing. We look at wealth, when a person has it, it's not his money, it's a blessing from God. It doesn't define him as a brilliant man because he is blessed with money. It defines him as a wealthy man, period. And he had a blessing that God gave him, period. So what does he do with that blessing? That challenge is enormous. It's an enormous challenge. And somebody steeped in religious concepts, in Torah concepts, will know what to do, will know how to come about doing the right thing with those things. Somebody who is steeped in the secular concepts of good deeds, kind, good Samaritan, maybe they'll do good things, but it may not be what Hashem wants him to do with that money. There is an interesting quote in that complicated named book by Nietzsche, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, right? So
I'm not sure Nietzsche could have pronounced it.
Right. And I remember reading it, and then I was reminded of it by this philosopher who I was reading his book, Alain de Botton, who was saying that when men acquire wealth, they are poorer because of it. In other words, the acquisition of wealth sometimes, like I meant, diminishes the focus on his neshama. Now, what do I do with all this millions of dollars? His whole focus is how to spend it, how to invest it, how to do. He's worried about like how it's going to grow and how it's going to blossom and how it's going to give him certain things he wants to do politically, influence something else. He's not focused on like my soul. Where is my soul with all this? Where's my neshama with all this? He'll seduce himself into believing that that's what it is, but he's really not. It's not. It's just not that. He's living in a world where he's obsessed with his money, his wealth, his newfound power, his newfound glory, his newfound fame, and his neshama, his soul, is left like be all by itself. To try to somehow nudge the person and remind him that yes, there's something important about this wealth that you can do with it. That's very important. But it is something. One of the misfortunes of wealth is that one forgets. Loses sight, rationalizes losing sight of the spiritual, and exchanges that for the corporeal, and the pursuit of the corporeal in every way he can.
What are some of the other misfortunes of wealth?
We're getting there, perhaps. We're going to talk about that right now. We're going to share some more of those things. Who earns wealth today? I mean, one of the groups that earn wealth, not only people who are investing, and not only people who are doing all kinds of shenanigans to make money, but like somebody said to me, and it's actually in the book from Nietzsche as well, in the Twilight of Idols, he writes, he says, only sick music makes money today. I mean, it's almost prophetic from when Nietzsche lived to now. When people hear the music on the radio, like people like totally like out of the bounds of control, and people and millions of people screaming, wow, like a Rav Hutner Zechron once talked about the worship of Hefkeris, and that was Baal Pa'or, when they would go and defecate on the idols. That was a sign of total Hefkeris, defecation on your God, and your God that you believe in. You defecate. That's what Hefkeris is. So the Hefkeris of this sick music, what he calls, right? So people make millions and billions, and people are screaming and yelling and dancing, and the women and everything is so celebrating this particular, whatever he may be. That's what people become wealthy from. That's just a misfortune in the way people make money, unfortunately. But that's beside that. The misfortune of prosperity is that, and this is very important, parents. The Alain de Botton that I mentioned to you before, he's not a French, he's an English philosopher, British philosopher. He had a French name, but he has a book called Status Anxiety. And in his mind, it's unquestionable. It's not an issue to this conversation. He believes that the pursuit of wealth comes from status anxiety. Call that an illness without a pill.
What is status anxiety?
Okay. A person gets an invitation to this fancy event, and his friend next to him, who's also a friend of the person sponsoring this event, says, how come I didn't get an invitation? Why do you get an invitation? Why didn't I get it? And it becomes a whole preoccupation of his value becomes based on who he's invited with, who he's invited to, and why he's not invited, and everything goes around that that anxiety about being a certain status. I mean, it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. But the Misfortunes Yesharim has a phrase that Rabbi Leib said. He turned it around on its head and he explained something very powerful. And I think it's very important for people to realize this and recognize this. He says, "Lulei hakovid," if it wasn't for pride, adam mistapek, a person would be satisfied with what he has. End quote. Then, Rabbi Leib says, so then, now, my friends, my talmidim, do you think when a man sees the tray coming in at a wedding, bring with all the delicacies on the platter, and he goes and looks at the platter and he takes the biggest piece of meat that he could find, you think that's taiva? You think it's desire? No. It's gaiva. Me, I deserve this piece. Lulei hakovid, if it wasn't for honor, a person would be happy. But a person thinks, a person like me, I'm a chashiv person, I deserve to have a very big, after all, I deserve to get, people should stay online and push it, say, Mister, take this piece.
It's coming to me, I deserve it.
I deserve it. And it's, that status anxiety becomes something which is, to me, an illness. It's an illness. Fortunately, I know this firsthand. Unfortunately, I know it firsthand. I've seen this with people who really believe in the power of money and the power of doing the wrong thing with money. In other words, besides they do good things with money, they also they buy ideas that may not be the right ideas with the power of money. Because they know that's people's kryptonite. People's kryptonite is money. So somebody who's poor may do the wrong thing because money. Against their own principles because of money.
In other words, it's not Superman, it's Stuperman. As somebody once said, it's a gorgonizing effect that stupefies a person.
Exactly. It does that. I mean, we're talking a job, just like a job, getting a job and working and making your achileinu lechem chuki, as Shlomo Melech says, give me my bread that I earn every day, that's all I want, is an imperative. It's not just something which is nice. It's an imperative, not just for the person's needs to be able to feed his family, but for the sense of human value, to appreciate yourself. I work, I earn money, I bring it home, I support my family, which is that's a part of my adam la'omol yulad. That's what he was created for. So living his mission it feels good to live your mission. I'm supporting my family. So it's not money making, just to support your family, to reach a goal, to fulfill a need of something other than part of your own mission in life is to be the man that does that. Because Baruch Hu wants his adam la'omol yulad to go and supply for the family. As for your need internally. Forget about the need to have bread and butter on your table.
So the concept of aspiring to wealth is where the difficulty lies?
Exactly.
So having the wealth, once a Kadosh Baruch Hu gives it to a person, that's something entirely different.
Well, again, if the person aspires to have the wealth and aspires and pursues it diligently, uncompromising everything else, then the money that he gets from that, I don't think is a blessing. I don't believe it. I believe that's money that unfortunately is cursed in a sense. I shouldn't use the word cursed, maybe perhaps, but it's not the money that Hashem wants him to have in that manner. He may give it to him. He may say to him, "Take it." You know, it reminds me of a famous word of Rosh Salanter. I'm not going to go into the whole proof that he brings to this word. Rosh Salanter says, "What is Gehenna? What is Israel? What is Gehenna talk about in Judaism? Hell." After 120 years or before that, you have to be, there's a cathartic experience called Gehenna. So he says, Gehenna is not only the fire of Gehenna, there's another part of Gehenna. Let's say a man pursues wealth in this world. So his Gehenna is pursue wealth. And then the neshama is screaming, I don't want to do it. It's painful for the neshama. Hashem says, okay, keep on doing it. That's what you invest your life in. That's what's important to you. That's what's most important to you. Continue. Just continue doing it. I had an incident, parents, which is a fascinating thing, a fascinating story. When I was saying, I was watching a shir in a yeshiva once, and there was a man who was very wealthy. Unfortunately, he lost a lot of his money. And he was giving a shir. And he was happened to be giving a shir on bitachon, a trusting and faith in God that everything's from Hashem. And
this is when he still had the money?
Had the money.
When he had the money.
He was giving a shir, and he had a phone call in the middle of the shir. He looked at the number. He said, to tell me this could be a mega $1 million deal. He was a Balei Tshuva. Mega million. But I'm not going to answer the call because I'm learning Torah now. And that's my primary mission in life, is to learn Torah. And when I teach Torah, I teach Torah. That's what Hashem wants from me. That when I'm teaching. And he put down the phone, whatever, and did not take the call. There are people uniquely that we discover like those people. However, for the most part, I don't mean this critically. I don't want to be Hashem Yimalabed Choyva and Klal Yisrael talk bad about Klal Yisrael, but we have this weakness. It's the kryptonite that's called money. Money is
affluenza. Some people might call it
affluenza, or just a simple Affluenza is the right word, but even not affluent, just pursuing the money. I'm not even talking about being affluent or just the pursuit, the running after it. You think about it, I think about it in terms of I try to go into my mind and think of myself as a soul watching people running after money for what this ephemeral pursuit, accomplishment that people it's here today and tomorrow it's not here anymore. When people lose it, people have it. And they think there's something because they have money. Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz once said a very profound thing. I just want to perhaps almost end it with this. He said, "B'shas petirasei shel adam." The Mishnah Pirkei Avos, le'malavanoisai, le'kesef, v'le'zohov, v'le'margolius tavis. When a person dies, he's not escorted by money, not gold, not beautiful pearls and jewelry. Ella, Torah, mitzvahs, amaisim type. So he was talking about a rabbi and a businessman, that they had wealth. One had wealth, and the other one had a very fancy smicha. So he said, he may be this great rabbi. He may be a great wealthy man. He's a fool with money, and the other one's a fool with a piece of paper. In Shemayim, they don't escort him. The paper and the pearls don't escort him. He's not Rabbi so-and-so. He's not millionaire, a billionaire, a millionaire someone. He's just Mr. Someone. That's it. He's a nar mit aksav, he says. He's a nar mit aksav and a tippish with money. That's what he is. That's all he focuses on. So I think it's important that we put things in perspective, that the misfortunes of prosperity are the lack of focus on ruchnius, on the mission of man. That's one of the greatest, the greatest distractions from man's focus is the pursuit, not the having, it's the pursuit of wealth. Man thinks all day, it's like a psik ratio, it's almost immediate. Man has to think about, how do I become wealthy? Not how to make a living, how do I become wealthy? And that obsession becomes so much part of who he is that the ruchnistic pursuit, the spirituality, drowns, screaming, begging in that, unfortunately, misleading pursuit.
The antidote for that?
Well, the antidote is that we have to have a new perspective on wealth. And we should understand, as you started off in the beginning, it is, well, if you are a rich man, then it doesn't matter if you answer right or wrong. That's the world today. When you're rich, they think you really know. Now, what do they know? Shlomo would always say, what do we know? We don't know anything. Well, we think we know. And people think you know. And they'll sit there and they'll have a room of nodders in the room. It's going at that because he's a rich man. So,
can you think of anything that the Rosh Hashiva Reb Scheinberg Zatzal had a perspective on this, or any thought that you remember that he might have said on this? I
remember this actually profound thing that it was simple, but it was, sometimes, if you know, sometimes there's simple profundity. You know that, like sometimes the remote wakes you up, like you get a sinus attack and it's like helps you recover from it. It was an amazing thing. Somebody was telling him that his father threatened, Talmud in the yeshiva was threatened by his father that if he continues learning, he's not going to have money. So what should he do? So Scheinberg, just like a reflex, said, "Oy, my dear, God has more money than anyone." And he just said those few words, and like, what is he going to say? No, that's not true. I mean, what is he going to say? And he said that with such simplicity, and you're not going to it's not going to go into an encyclopedia of intellectuals, but it's such a profundity because it's a true profundity, and that's what's really profound about truth, that it's truth. And what seems not profound about with other things we say, and that it's not true, even though it sounds sophisticated.
Rabbi Leib Tropper, thank you very much for those thoughts on the misfortunes of fortune and wealth, and hopefully, Bez Hashem, those who are blessed with wealth will use it properly, and all of us will take with us the true wealth of Torah and mitzvahs and ma'asim tovim.
Thank you so much, parents, for the opportunity, and thank all those who allowed me to have this opportunity.
Thank you.